Hey friends, Shea here. And if you know me, you know I'm obsessed with my perfect dog, the baby angel Ruff. Well, Ruff came into our lives through an amazing organization called PAC. That's P-A-C-K, People, Animals, Compassion, and Kindness. They do amazing work in the community here in the greater Tacoma area, providing financial assistance to help the pets of low-income families and the unhoused.
They're also a deeply involved dog rescue, working as a foster-based refuge for dogs in need of all ages and levels of medical needs. And now you get a chance to support the group that gave us Ruff, his forever home. I'm so blessed to be Ruff's auntie.
Yes, you are.
PAC, P-A-C-K, is throwing an awesome fundraiser event on June 6th, and you're invited.
It's the third annual Party with a Purpose, and it's your chance to have a great time and help pets in need. There'll be silent auctions, raffles, great food, and all the fuzzy feels.
The event is happening on June 6th, 2025 at the beautiful waterfront venue at Narrows Marina, located at 9007 South 19th Street, Tacoma.
Whether you're a dog person, a cat person, or just a good human, this event is the perfect way to show some love and make a real impact.
So grab your calendar, go to PAC Gives, that's PACKGIVES.org, or check out the link in our show notes and get your tickets. That's June 6th. Come be part of the PAC.
And Ruff says thank you.
And Ruff is so cute, so you have to go.
He's so cute.
So cute. Bye. Bye.
Okay, rabbit holers, do not adjust your tinfoil hats because this is real. We are giving away tickets to the Men in Black birthday bash.
That's right. I'm just going to scratch under my really tight tinfoil hat because I'm keeping it on for you. Because 2 lucky listeners will get to party like secret agents with a guest, minus the weird sunglasses and suspicious government silence. That's not true. You're gonna wear weird sunglasses, and there's probably government silence there as well. We're gonna keep them silent. But anyway, we're gonna give away 2 tickets to 2 listeners.
Yes, and you actually do in your swag box get sunglasses. So you are partying with sunglasses. This bash is not your average bake sale. It's the most bizarre, most brilliant birthday party for the Men in Black, held right here in the Pacific Northwest.
And we've got the man behind the madness right here with us, filmmaker, historian, and professional UFO wrangler, Steve Edmiston.
Well, hey, thanks for sharing the story with me and allowing me to share it with your listeners. I'm excited to invite some of you, all of you, actually inviting everybody to go down the rabbit hole with us. I love rainy day rabbit holes.
Thank you.
Come down the rabbit hole with us. Our festival has films and music and storytelling and mystery and mythology and comedy and camaraderie. And certainly people in black suits. You're going to see a lot of that, all pretending probably not to be people in black suits, right. But we can spot them. You know, if you come to the bash on June 21, you're going to be around about 200 of your fellow men and women in black. So you'll be in good company. I think we like to say it's out of this world in every way.
Absolutely. To enter, just head to rainydayrabbitholes.com. There's a button near the top of the page that will take you to the sign up page to enter. All you have to do is enter your details. Now, this does sign you up to receive our newsletter, but that's a bonus. We honestly only send it out every couple of months, so it's pretty low on the spam.
And we will pick 2 winners, and Steve will beam you straight to Des Moines. Okay, not literally, but you'll get at least free tickets, if not being beamed there.
The important part is that maybe, just maybe, you're going to find out who's really watching you.
So, my friends, please go to rainydayrabbitholes.com, sign up to win tickets to the Men in Black birthday bash. And even if you don't win tickets, you still need to sign up to go. And I will have links at rainydayrabbitholes.com to buy tickets to all of the different Men in Black birthday bash events, including our live event on June 13th at the Marina Mercantile. So again, rainydayrabbitholes.com. Thank you, Steve. And
see you at the Men in Black birthday bash. Roswell can suck it.
Welcome to Rainy Day Rabbit Holes, where we take the history of the West off the rails.
If you like your history unhinged, you are in the right place.
I'm Shea.
And I'm Jody.
Let's fall down the rabbit hole.
Welcome back, rabbit holers. If you tuned in for episode 33 and 34, you already know we took a deep dive into one of the strangest, most tangled tales of the Pacific Northwest, the Maury Island Incident, and the unforgettable character of Fred Crisman.
Fred Crisman, aka Fred Christmas, as I will probably call him during this episode, is central to this story, and he was a right-wing conspiracy theorist, a self-styled hero, and let's be honest here, possibly bat crap crazy. Or not so possibly, he just was. Despite his questionable credibility, his name still manages to show up in some of the weirdest footnotes of 20th century history, including rumors of involvement in the JFK assassination. Yep, that's a rabbit hole all on its own.
But the real reason we're back on this strange corner of UFO lore is because the Pacific Northwest is where it all began. The first modern use of the phrase flying saucer, right here. The origin of the Men in Black phenomenon, also here. Washington State didn't just give us Bigfoot. We basically invented UFO paranoia.
So today, we are beyond excited to welcome someone who has dedicated years to preserving and exploring this legacy. Filmmaker, historian, and the guy throwing one of the coolest paranormal parties on the West Coast, Steve Edmiston. Steve is the writer and producer of the Maury Island Incident short film and the creator of the Men in Black birthday bash in Des Moines, Washington. He's here to talk about the film, the infamous incident itself, government secrecy, the cultural explosion of the Men in Black, and why these stories still matter. Welcome, Steve.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. This is super fun. Already.
I know. We're already having a blast. You guys have missed the last 15 minutes of us, or 20 minutes of us chit-chatting, and we will be releasing some of that conversation as bonus content later this week. But first off, we want to start off with, can you briefly introduce our listeners to the Maury Island Incident and why you felt that this tale needed to be told on film?
Yeah. The challenge with Maury Island is the word briefly. To be candid, because
Sure.
It's so epic in scope. It is not, we joke a lot, and I have collaborators on the festivals and on the movie, and we kind of joke a lot about the fact that, it would have been easier if this was a story about a guy who walks in a forest by himself and nobody's with him, and then he walks out a few days later and says something extraordinary happened. And if that was what happened, we would have 1,000 books about this thing, people researching, did it happen, did it not happen? But it's simple in a sense. It's somebody's word, and we can't really explore it.
Like most Bigfoot sightings.
And we move those into our sort of library of mythology.
Bat Squatch.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We just have it all because no one's going to be able to disprove what you say happened to you, and nor can you prove that it happened. And that's where mythology lives. And Maury Island is really unique to me in that the record that we have from government agencies at the time, multiple government agencies at the time, interviews with people that were involved with the story, investigations of tragedies associated with the story, is voluminous. And as a lawyer, just as background, and as a screenwriter and independent movie producer, when I heard the story for the first time, that's what intrigued me. I'm not writing down somebody's version of just what they're saying. I've got this amazing, just deep library of resource materials to actually pull from and to utilize, so that someone's not just, saying, well, that's he said, she said type stuff. It's all there in black and white.
Right, we have actual proven facts.
that was intriguing to me. So I learned about this in a coffee shop.
Oh, wow.
So I
Just randomly?
I live in a little neighborhood called Woodmont. It looks out at Maury Island. We look across Puget Sound. It's in the city of Des Moines. We look across Puget Sound at Maury Island. I had lived there since 1999, and in about 2012, I'm at a coffee shop with a neighbor, and we are having a chit-chat about history, about Ken Burns' documentary on Prohibition, which was really
Yes.
interesting to us because there's a piece of it in our neighborhood.
Yes,
that
and we
were
will
like-
get to that later in this interview. We're
Okay,
going to talk about
okay,
this.
super.
Yeah.
I feel like I live in Stephen King's Castle Rock. We have these
Oh, yeah.
amazing
Everything's
stories in
happening.
our little tiny community, and we're talking about this little piece of local history, and this is so coffee shop. And so Northwest, somebody leans into our conversation. We don't know who it is,
I do that all the time.
and we now call him our deep throat because we don't know who he is. We have no name. He's disappeared into history, but he's the person that leans in and goes, "Oh, you like local history?
Yeah.
Do you?
You must have heard about this Maury Island incident." It's in Puget Sound, and he was all wrong on everything. He was like, it's in the 1950s and all these flying saucers. You just kind of didn't really know. He just knew about it a little bit. And we did what all Seattleites are trained to do, which the freeze. We were like, oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for we'll go back to our conversation.
And also we'll definitely make plans with you someday in the future.
we were horrible. I mean, I don't think we were rude, but in hindsight,
Right.
I feel like we were horrible.
He has no idea to this day
What
what
he
he
created.
No,
what
and he
stirred
did
up in you.
and he did create it. He's the Godfather.
Yeah.
And so, but I go home that night and that day, and it kind of bugged me because I'm thinking, well, if something happened, if some alleged story happened, it's where I look every day. It's
Right.
Yeah.
and I've never heard of it. That's weird, right? And
Yes.
so I started asking my neighbors. Nobody had ever heard of it.
Yeah, I had
This story.
Yeah, until just
And
last year.
so then I start digging and find out this kind of amazing, I would say the Wikipedia level of digging of what happened at Maury Island,
Sure,
which is
sure.
basically, to a guy named Harold Dahl and his son Charles, and they live in Tacoma and they go down to the docks. They have a boat, the North Queen. They hire 2 dock workers, day workers. We don't know who they are. They disappeared. They're the kind of people you would hire at the
Home Depot.
At the Home Depot to come
Right.
move stuff, and then you say thank you, and we don't know who they are. So we have 4 people on a boat. They go 3 miles north. They're just off Maury Island, and they're on. It's a huge boat. It's an 80-footer, and it's old working fishing trawler, and they're out scavenging logs. And back in the day, this is 1947. To be precise, June 21, 1947, and they're the mills in Tacoma, took giant log booms of logs up and down the sound so that they could process them. And so what would happen is, like a cattle strays from the herd, you can make money getting that cattle, and bringing
Right.
it back. You
Right.
can make money finding those logs and selling them back to the mills. Everybody wins. So they're just out finding logs, and the allegation is they're just off Maury Island.
And just real quick for our listeners that may not be familiar, Maury Island is just slightly north of Tacoma, Washington.
Correct. You
So
can see it from there.
Yes, so just slightly south of Seattle in the Puget Sound.
Yes. And it's now connected to Vashon. It's Vashon-Maury
Right,
Island.
by a man-made isthmus.
I was just
Another.
gonna say
May the
that.
4th be with you on your isthmus.
Mary Isthmus. Also famously a place where I think Boeing liked to dump toxic waste, but we'll get into that later.
So we think. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So anyway,
they're just off Maury Island, and the allegation is, you can tell attorney, the allegation is
allegedly
that all of a sudden 6 flying discs that were described as 100 feet across and somewhat like shaped like a donut, like hollow in the middle, like you would look up and you could see through them. And one of them is alleged, they appear in the area of the boat and above the boat. And there's one that's sort of like, I love that when I do podcasts that I wave my hands like people are watching.
Right.
I'm sorry.
We do it too.
yeah, we do too.
Make faces at each other. Oops.
And the allegation is that that one of these discs was lower than the others, and it was sometimes it's referred to as it was maybe failing,
Like struggling a bit.
struggling. Something was wrong, and then it starts to release a chaff like material, and I always think of that like as if you light a bonfire with a bunch of newspapers and the
Like
ashes,
all that, the fine
yeah,
ash
yeah.
from this paper.
that's
Okay,
what it
sure.
seems to be.
Yeah.
That's falling from this craft. That's followed by an explosion, and that explosion is releasing now this molten material, which gets labeled slag, and it's flying down. And this is right above the boat, right above the North Queen, and it's scary. So the one thing that I really picked up as a writer, when you read things in black and white, and when I'm reading reports, FBI reports that we'll talk about, you're kind of reading it and it's one line and then things fell off and it doesn't seem exciting. And as a creative, as a writer, I'm like, stop. If you're on an 80-foot boat and something is raining fiery slag upon you,
right,
and it's damaging the boat and it hits the dog that they brought, the family dog, Sparky.
Allegedly.
Which I have lots of questions about.
Mm-hmm.
Sparky is killed. Sparky is killed, according to the story. Sparky is killed by the slag. Then the boat is damaged. Charles, Harold Dahl's son, is allegedly hit on his arm and burned. So they're in crisis mode. And so for me, I'm thinking, this is sort of taking the beach in Private Ryan. This is they're in distress and things are raining on them and they don't understand it. So it makes sense that they ran that giant boat aground on Maury Island and scrambled off it and hid in these cliffs. And that's what they did, allegedly. Then the discs all leave. And the one that seems to be failing, some accounts suggest that it was another craft came down and kind of touched it. And all of a sudden it was better. Some accounts don't reflect that. But in any event, they're all gone. They leave. And the four people on the beach, kind of say, wow, we don't know what that is. And they kind of have this tentative agreement not to say anything. They get back in the boat and they...
Like, nobody's going to believe us.
Yeah, they don't really have a plan what to do, right?
We don't know what this was, so...
So that's June 21. That is... When I do public speaking about this, I always have a slide that goes, day one, and then I joke with the audience. I know you're a smart audience, and if you see day one, you know what. And somebody goes, "There's a day two." And I go, "Yes, there's a day two." And so the next morning, at Harold Dahl's house on Gove Street in Tacoma, isn't there anymore. We can't go by it.
What's
really
what area of Tacoma would this be?
It's up above, if you were up kind of on the hill, Stadium High School,
okay,
kind of, but not. I mean, kind of farther. What direction would that be?
So towards Proctor more.
Yeah, not that far in. So I'm kind of thinking about
North Tacoma, Old Town.
From Old Town, Old Town, all along the waterfront there till you get to the bridges, down by the museums. So that, if you think of that as like a curve, and then you kind of did one of those protractors and went right up to the top of where that curve is. That's kind of where that is on Gove Street. And Fred Crisman didn't live that far away from there. So he's at his home. It's the next morning. It's June 22nd of 1947. And the allegation is that early in the morning, 6:30-ish, a man knocks on his door. And I always ask audiences, what do you think he was dressed like? And then people are excited. The man, he's dressed in black. Yes, he's the quintessential man in black suit, the white shirt, the fedora. Actually, accounts say he showed up in a black, new 1947 Buick. And at the door, he tells Harold that he knows everything that happened to him the day before on the water. They needed to talk about it and suggested that they go somewhere to talk about it, that his wife is home and his son has been hurt. And so the suggestion that Harold, for what reason, we don't know, agreed to was, let's go to a diner. So they go to a diner.
Real quick before you get on, this is part of the story that kind of, I question a little bit, somebody just shows up at your door and maybe you had this experience yesterday, but they're telling you everything about it and they're like, let's go somewhere. Why would you do that? So do you think that this man made some veiled threats or something like that to get Harold to go with him? Or do you think he didn't tell his wife what happened?
I mean, this is the next day, but matter of hours, not 24 hours, right?
Yeah, this should be early in the morning the next day. It should be less than 24 hours.
Do you think he was just it was just... I mean, obviously, we're just making speculation right here about if this story is to be believed, what his motivations to just go somewhere with this random dude.
Let's speculate. I kind of wonder. I try to put myself in Harold's shoes. And when we made the movie, we really wanted to feel like we're in Harold's shoes and have him be somewhat sympathetic to if this happened to him.
Right. Yeah, I remember in the movie, so Jody and I did watch the movie just the last couple of days. And in this scene, Harold's making coffee early in the morning. He's in his bathrobe, maybe still a little bit shaken from what happened yesterday.
Yeah, he's a little distracted for sure.
Yeah, and then this knock comes at his door, and there's this man in a suit and literally telling him everything that happened to him the day before. So I'm just trying to put myself in Harold's shoes. But then again, also trying to put yourself into the shoes of somebody that lives in 1947 is a lot different than 2025, where we have a lot more suspicions probably now than back then.
So In writing and making the movie, we followed what Harold said in the interviews with the FBI.
Okay.
So we didn't want to reinvent that. So we kind of used that as our structure. Now, those interview records don't explain Harold's motivation
Sure, of course.
for making the decision to go. My own surmise as a creative thinking about what would sell that was if something shocking did happen to him the day before and somebody showed up looking clearly like from the government, some agency.
Pretty convincing.
And if Harold was convinced that the man was telling the truth, that he knew what happened to him, because Harold didn't know what happened to him. Right. I mean, if you think, Harold's like, I'm going to learn what happened to me.
Yeah.
And the guy is saying, and I kind of assume that Harold didn't come home and tell his wife everything, in terms of a verbatim account of what happened.
He did not post it on social media.
In fact, in the film,
was a failing.
I know.
But yet this guy has it word for word. Like,
yeah. And it's not clear to me that at the doorstep, the guy relayed everything that happened to Harold. Mm-hmm. But my assumption is Harold was convinced that he knew something.
Is that why you added those details of that man saying, like, I know exactly when you get up, when you make your coffee, when you go to this diner, let's go to that diner now.
Yeah, those are ways for us to heighten. I mean, those are things that as writers and the director, we wanted to stick to the story and the accounts that the FBI said, but fill in some blanks.
Sure.
Right? And if we wanted to create a story that allowed people to think Harold believed this man in black and his threats and those things, then what were we going to do to show that? And so things like, I know about you. Mm-hmm. And if I exaggerate and say, well, I know from FBI records that the man in black allegedly said that he knew what happened on the water and explained it to him, but let's really go deep on that, right? Let's really go deep on everything this guy knows about Harold to sort of ratchet up and control Harold, which is what he was trying to do,
right?
Really, and which is what if this is, history's first account of an encounter with what we now know as the Men in Black. One of the really neat things that comes from the FBI interviews and the story is this notion of the Men in Black delivers the warning. That's an iconic feature of what they do, right? They appear, they intimidate, and then they tell you, don't talk about that thing or what it is you're going to get in trouble. And all those elements are there in the story at this point, when they get to the diner and he tells them.
So I have a question, though. At this point, though, is there any, did Harold say who he had told this story to before the Man in Black shows up? Like, how is it that the Man in Black would know exactly what happened to him? He had to have told somebody. And I'm assuming it's Fred. Was it?
Oh, yeah.
So,
that's an interesting
like, how
angle.
would a Man in Black know what happened to him unless they're like somehow watching it? Like, why? So that's a part of the story for me that's that has some holes and some questions to me. Is where did the supposedly a secret government agency come into knowing about this incident? Yeah. I would assume if this happened and Harold told Fred, that Fred probably immediately blabbed to somebody, but I want to hear your take on it.
Yeah, my take was, we know that Harold told Fred at some point, probably right away, probably within 24 hours.
Did they work together?
Yeah, they are described in many different ways. Sometimes it's Harold worked for Fred. Sometimes they were partners in a harbor patrol business. Okay. Sometimes they were colleagues in other businesses. I got the impression that they were always looking for an angle to, or at least Fred was.
I was both of them.
To just,
Fred.
yeah. Harold doesn't really have that sort of. Harold seems like a follower more than a.
Yeah, Fred's definitely somebody who, and we'll get to him later, but who probably was constantly looking for schemes, constantly involving people that were a little bit more manipulative or more malleable into his schemes.
Oh, yeah.
And so Harold definitely would have been maybe that. And
Fred had been doing all of his sort of. The Lemurian, people that lived under the ground, cave stories, and the Darrow. So all that stuff is, already in Fred's repertoire, right? Mm-hmm. The key for Fred that we should circle back to, we'll finish the story. The key for me for Fred, and this is something we should definitely think about, that I think about all the time, is that to me, what I see in Fred is like history's ultimate opportunist when it comes to conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
He never saw anything he didn't want to jump in and become part of. And what's really intriguing to me about the Maury Island story and Fred's involvement, which is why we kind of marginalized him as we tried to tell the story, was because it actually appears to be one of the instances where Fred isn't saying he was there. Right? I mean,
Right, that's
he
true.
did not try to
Okay.
inject
Okay.
himself
That's
because
fascinating.
why didn't he just say I was on the boat? Why don't they just, if they're going to lie
Right.
about all this stuff,
Right.
why did he not inject himself at the very beginning?
That's true.
And only I come after. Like I learned about it from Harold. So that part seems authentic to me. That makes
Right.
sense
Otherwise,
to me.
Well,
he
let's
would
circle.
have.
Let's circle back to
Okay,
Fred
okay.
later. Let's. Fred complicates things
Yes.
and muddies the waters. So let's go back to
We're at the diner.
The diner. So however it happens, the man in black knows about this incident, convinces Harold to go to the diner. So first off, does this diner still exist today? Is the tin room?
Yeah, we shot the film at a place called the Tin Room in Burien.
I was gonna
so
say,
it was not
is it-
the.
I was
what-
just going to say that.
Yeah.
I've been to the tin room,
Yeah,
but it
we-
was in Burien.
Yeah.
we shot the
exactly.
film. We shot the scene there. So I actually have a couple of guys that do a lot of. They go to all my talks around the state because they're really fascinated with the subject, and then they like to. It allows them to plan road trips without
Yes.
planning. They just go, "Where are you going?" Okay, we'll go,
Okay,
and then they go there.
I love these people. These are our people.
Yeah. And one of them, a guy named Craig Holmes, is become like a total historian on the topic. So he is filling up all the holes in the story. He like goes out and he's found the North Queen. He's found all kinds of cool stuff. He went out and got replica boxes. Well, we're getting to the other story.
The actual North Queen? You found
Well, yes and no. So first he found the North Queen on the East Coast. Then it turned out that was not the North Queen, and then ultimately discovered that the North Queen had been sunk, but the people that owned it named another boat the North Queen,
Okay.
and that's
Okay.
the boat. So we were all excited when he first found it because he thought he
Sure.
found it, because we were like, we're going to go over there and we're going to find some damage.
It had been sunk on purpose or on accident?
We don't know. We don't know yet.
Okay.
Bum, bum,
So-
bum.
So basically, we're at the diner. The story is that the man in black tells Harold everything that happened. To your point, I've always sort of thought of this as it didn't happen that Harold had already blurted it out and it came back, and that somehow that got to somebody who was a man in black. I have always taken the position is not the right word, but I've always sort of interpreted it as, no, if all this is true, then somehow somebody else was on the water and they saw it.
Okay.
They saw this happen, or they knew it was happening. A lot of people have speculated that if we're doing military aircraft
Right.
testing, of course they would know this is happening.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
my
other
thought.
thing. I was
and then
gonna
they see
suggest.
this rogue person in the middle of the zone
Right.
that are not supposed to be there, and so that has to be followed up on. So I've always kind of come at it from that perspective, like then that explains if
Yeah.
it happened. That
I like that.
why that happened. So the warning is given, and that's kind of the end of the accounts that you get for this June 21 and June 22, 1947 in all the government documents, which will explain why we have those in the first place. So I usually stop and say that's the Maury Island Incident story, and people are like, well, that's a great story, and then I try to ask people, because a lot of people are hearing it for the first time. I go, well, how come we don't know this story? What's wrong
Right.
what's wrong with the story? This amazing story. We had first dog death by UFO. Sparky. We're going to really elevate Sparky's story this year. At
Yes,
Fest.
yes.
Oh, good,
We'll get
good.
in. We're going to get into Sparky later. We have
yeah.
section for him.
And because I want an audience who's coming to this for the first time to like identify with the core story before I start picking it apart, right? And so then I have a slide, and the slide is basically, I call it the spectrum of, first thing is a slide of a Wikipedia entry that says, basically Harold Dahl confessed it was all a hoax.
Oh.
And so I hit him over the head with the hoax. Mm-hmm. And then we talk about, well, if someone confesses to a hoax, then why would we pay any attention to it?
Right.
And everybody,
Right.
And then I go, doesn't that feel deflating? Shouldn't we all go home now?
Right.
It just feels horrible. And then we talk about, as someone who was just fascinated learning the story, that just bothered me to no end. It just bothered me. That was not satisfying. And so I just kept pulling documents and reading the story. And it didn't take that long once I got a hold of all the FBI documents. And as a lawyer, what I always do is take all my records and I put them in date order, and I just, so I can follow at least what the documentary record is on the story.
Chronologically.
And that's when I really got information about kind of what happened at the end of the summer, all the tragedies. And
real quick, before we move on, when you talk about government documents about those first 2 days, where did those government documents come from?
Yep.
If this man in black was some mystery secret sect of the government, then is this from later interviews that we have these initial 2 days government documents? That
is correct.
Okay.
So kind of fast forwarding through the summer of 1947.
The summer of saucers.
Summer of the saucers. So we have Maury Island, June 21, June 22nd. And then 2 days later, we have Ken Arnold's very famous Mount Rainier sighting.
I thought it was before. It was
after.
Was after?
Yeah. Maury Island's first.
Okay.
But people didn't know about Maury Island first. They knew about Ken Arnold first. So Maury Island's the 21st and 22nd. On June 24th is Ken Arnold's very famous and very credible sighting at Mount Rainier. 2 weeks later, on July 8th? We have this little thing called the Roswell crash.
Well, and it wasn't July 8th, too. It wasn't even that was the date it was supposed to be. That was the date it was reported.
Correct.
It was weeks later that it was reported.
Yeah, July 2nd, I think, is the date they allege the crash happened.
Okay.
Nobody knew about that until the Army down in Roswell had a press conference.
And said that stupid thing about flying discs found on...
We found flying discs, and then 3 hours later realized they'd made a horrible mistake. And
I made flying discs of wood.
recanted it all. And then started the Roswell legend. So that's like Summer of the Saucers.
When do reports of... So Kenneth Arnold's reports started showing up, and we'll
right
have
away.
You give a quick... So that was right away. So that was before Roswell that those that started showing up in newspapers. Is Kenneth Arnold's events.
Yes.
And then would it have been Maury Island after that or Roswell after that?
Maury Island got very, very little attention.
Okay.
Until the end of the summer.
Okay.
When people knew about the Maury Island allegation because Harold Dahl did talk to people and Fred Crisman did talk to people.
Didn't he?
And
who didn't he talk to?
They were reaching out to Ray Palmer at Fate magazine. I mean, so in the summer, it's sort of contextual. It's like this crazy time where everybody suddenly decided that UFOs were the thing. Flying discs, flying saucers were the thing. And they had thousands of sightings around the country and world. And it really was, we didn't have social media. So we didn't get to do TikToks on fun stuff. What we did was we ran down to the newspaper and said, I saw something.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And got a story in the newspaper and probably felt really good about that little prank, And so a lot of it probably was fun and games and hoaxes, but it was daily in the newspapers all over the country.
I looked up, when we were researching this, I did do a search through our local newspapers to find, right after Kenneth Arnold's reports, what other reports came up. And it was, farmers were seeing flying saucers over their fields. Ethel from somewhere in Corvallis was like, I saw 25 floating discs, but I don't think they were flying saucers. I don't know what they were. It was that sort of thing. It was just every weird thing they saw in the sky was now a flying saucer. Thank you, Kenneth Arnold, or the reporter that misreported what Kenneth Arnold said to come up with flying saucers.
Yep.
But and maybe this is part of. I remember when we went to the Men in Black Festival last year, and there's definitely a rivalry between the Pacific Northwest and Roswell as being the first big thing. Yeah. I question that. Did Kenneth Arnold, his sighting here in the United States, spark the entire thing? I mean, even though Maury Island happened first, if Kenneth Arnold's sightings and the flying saucers was reported first, are these just copycats down in Roswell? They're just wannabe.
Well, we have an acronym that we use. You might remember it, but RCSI. It's on all of our T-shirts and everything. RCSI. And if you're into MibFest, then you know what that means. And I've never shared it on the radio, but what it means is Roswell can suck it.
Yeah, they can.
We are on Radio Tacoma. So
There you go.
not only are we streaming on all the platforms, but we are on Radio Tacoma, so now it's out there.
So we do
Roswell
refer to
and
Roswell as the Roswell Industrial Complex. So the
Yes.
idea is that it does Roswell's story, and the brilliance of, a press release by the Army and then a recantation, it's just candy, right? You just
Sure.
can't let it go. So you have thousands of books written. I don't know what they're up to, about Roswell. It's just a never-ending.
And a merchandising empire.
Oh
Yeah,
and
definitely.
big festivals and just I can't I in my talk I talk about the number of Hollywood releases that have a topic. Roswell, Area 51, Men in Black, just sort of because it's easy to get that. And like Roswell has 85 feature films that feature.
Oh, sure.
Roswell
And then we
as
have
a
all
topic.
of the X-Files, which basically is based off of
all
it.
that stuff. So it's just sort of systemic and they've got the attention. So during the summer, that got a lot of attention in July. Ken Arnold's sighting got a lot of attention. And then it was just this stream of sightings. And what happened was, this is where I geek out. The history is so great. This is why I love the story. In 1947 in the summer, we are just March, April, May, June. We're 4 months into the Cold War. In March, Harry Truman announced the containment doctrine and let the country know we have a new enemy.
And we're not that far off of World War II.
No, we're 2 years out, right? But we have a new enemy. It's the Soviet Union, our former allies.
And we're right in starting to get into the space race a little bit too, right?
The Cold War's kicking in. Truman announces this thing called the containment doctrine, which is basically, we will go to war with you. We will stop you from advancing out of your current borders. So, I mean, this is a big, big deal. And so in this summer of 1947, where we're now starting this kind of new Red Scare, Cold War thing is happening, we have thousands of people saying they are seeing things overfly our country. So while the branches of government might not have thought of it as little green men, they actually did think of it as, what if there's technology flying our country, overflying our country?
It's little red men instead.
Yes. And they took it seriously. So you had the FBI and the Army Air Force and the newly formed CIA all conducting interviews. Like if you said you saw something in the summer of 1947 and it got reported in the paper, it was not unusual for you to get a knock on your door a few days later with someone who'd like to talk to you about that. Of course, they were dismissing most of it as hysteria or fun and games, but they had to check it out. So the reason that's important from a context standpoint is it explains that by the end of the summer, the Army and the FBI and Ken Arnold, who had been recruited because he's such a celebrity by this point. He's a pilot from Boise. He's credible. They're all investigating these saucer sightings, and for different reasons. Arnold's being paid by a magazine to investigate. Army's doing it because they want to see if people are seeing Soviet overflights. But they all kind of have met each other by this point, and they are all assigned investigate Maury Island. It's just next up in their queue. So they agree on the last day of July, they're going to go out. They're going to go to Tacoma. Two Army intelligence officers, William Davidson and Ken Brown, they're pilots from World War II. They're still in the Army.
And this is like the second week of the Army Air Force, right?
No, it hasn't started yet. This is actually, we're right at the cusp.
Okay.
On July 31, they get into a B-25 bomber, which I always like to joke is kind of, I guess, the Uber of 1947.
It's a very expensive
Uber. You have all this extra stuff. Give me some keys. I'm going to fly
sitting around from the war.
I'm going to fly the B-25 up to Tacoma.
We gotta keep the battery charged, right?
Yeah. So they fly up. Ken Arnold flies over, and they're all going to meet up with Harold Dahl and Fred Crisman and a couple of other people at the Winthrop Hotel in Tacoma. And the idea is this is the official investigation of Maury Island. So they do that. They show up, and it's July 31st, and the questions and answers, it's referred to as the interrogations are happening. It goes on. There's a whole story about what happened in that room and what was said in that room. But at the end of it, you pass midnight. That's, and you're now in August 1st, and they are handed by Crisman, I believe, a cornflakes box. And in this cornflakes box which I guess was handy, allegedly is slag that had fallen from the UFO onto Harold's
Right.
boat
The struggling
that they
one,
had
yeah.
collected, and they wanted to give it to these investigating officers. So they have that, and they kind of are done with the interviews. And the two Air Force officers, they take their cornflakes box of evidence. They go back to McCord Field in Tacoma. This is I just love the detail in the history here. They manifest. You write what you're putting onto the airplane.
Yeah.
It's your airplane. They're going to put on the airplane.
You said manifest. I was thinking of like manifest your destiny.
Well, it is it's a flight manifest, right?
Different.
I
Yes.
think- and
sorry.
it turns out maybe they did. They put on the flight manifest top secret cargo. They bring the cornflakes box of this slag.
I hope they put it in another box because
Top
that's just silly.
Top secret cargo. They actually put that in something called a navigator's kit.
Okay.
Which my historians that follow me around, they've got these authentic B-25 navigator's kit. They've got authentic cornflakes boxes.
Is it
I
like
love
a-
their energy?
They love it. They just the detail. They just love it.
Is it like a pelican case?
But
Or
no,
by
it's
canvas?
a soft leather though.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So yes, it's a thing, and it apparently sat between the seats, and you could put the papers and everything that you had in it. So they manifest what they put on this slag as top secret cargo. They pick up two passengers who want to also fly down. It's middle of the night. It's now 2 a.m.
And they're headed back to California, right?
Headed back to California to the air base, and the reason is what you brought up is it's Air Force Day. That August 1 of 1947 is the day that they picked to celebrate the Air Force separating from the Army and becoming a separate branch of the military. And these two officers were going to be Air Force officers, and their celebration is going to happen down in California, and they're going to get there, so they're going to leave in the middle of the night.
So that's why they left in the middle of the night.
That's why they left in the middle of the
instead
night
staying
to get back to these celebrations. And of course, this is where the tragedy happens. That plane with that top secret cargo makes it about 45 minutes into the flight and spontaneously catches fire. That's how it's described. It appears that there's a fire in the left engine. The pilots are able to get parachutes on the two passengers, a sergeant and an enlisted man, and they are successfully, get out of the plane. They're both injured in their parachute drop, but they survive. But the amount of time that takes apparently was too much time. The left wing becomes fully engulfed and breaks off. The plane spins out, and the pilots die in the crash east of Kelso, Washington. The Army then flies a platoon. Once they know that this happened, they fly a platoon down from McCord. They seal off the site. And this is where it kind of gets X-Files-y to me. They seal off the site. Don't let anybody from local law enforcement in. So if you're conspiracy theory following the UFO evidence here, they're not letting anybody approach this site until they get another intelligence officer who can come to the site and go find the top secret cargo. And we know that from the Army's final mission report. They document that's how they did it.
Okay.
So intelligence officer comes onto the site, locates the navigator's kit and the top secret cargo, and removes it from the site.
Oh.
We have no idea what happened to it.
Okay, so in my research, I just had read that it just was lost.
Well, it's...
But it was lost on purpose.
It's lost. I always like to think that it's right next to the Ark of the Covenant in that warehouse at the end of Indiana Jones, or all the stuff that you don't get to know where it is. So we have no idea what happened to it. But no, if you go, the Army's final mission report that I got as a document request from an Army archive in Alabama. I learned, by the way, if you want to get weird UFO stuff, you can't get it by asking for weird UFO stuff. They just send you to their preset vaults of material. UFOs are the number one records request in history for every agency. and so they don't like dealing with it. So they say that they have pulled all their UFO documents, and it's all online now. For example, at the FBI, you can go to this thing called the vault. Everything they have is there. Well, one, you have to believe that that's true, that everything they have is there. But assuming that it's true, you can look at it, and then you realize anytime you ask for something, if it smells like a UFO, they just send you to the vault, and they're done. They wash their hands of it. So I realized as a lawyer, maybe, I have to trick them. I have to get information where they don't know it's a UFO query. And so that's how I got the stuff from the Army about this crash of this plane. Is I went, I'm going to go to the Army. I'm going to find out an archive that might have this information. I'm not going to mention UFO or flying disc or even this flight or anything. I'm just going to say I'm doing some research on military aircraft crashes from January 1, 1947 through January 1, 1948. Anywhere in the United States, knowing that there wouldn't be that many,
right?
But it had nothing to do with like segmenting this.
Yeah.
And then you can narrow it down.
6 months later, I get a phone call and they're like, "Oh, we have this. We don't have much. We just only have this 67-page final mission report." And I'm like doing the happy dance, like, I got something that nobody has.
Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Sure.
Yeah. So
Thanks
that's how I learned about how the intelligence officer came to the site, found the stuff, left, and then they release it to local law enforcement because they've got the goods. They've got the which I think is, if you're a conspiracy theorist and you think we're chasing actual evidence, wow.
Or maybe it's just the military wants to make sure that they keep a hold of anything that is of military intelligence.
They called it top secret.
In that day and age. Whether it's top secret UFO or top secret just military intelligence,
exactly.
Of course the military is going to want to have their hands on it before the local yokels in Kelso, Washington
I agree.
show up.
Yes.
So that doesn't necessarily lend credence to,
UFO.
Paranormal experiences. But this crash definitely lends a lot of fuel to the UFO conspiracy fire, for sure. I'm sorry, you were going to say, Jody?
Well, it's a less serious. I just wanted to know, has Kellogg's weighed in on their part in this story?
I don't think so. I think, neither Kellogg's nor the military really wants anything to do with this story. There have been efforts by people to have an acknowledgement of the deaths of Davidson and Brown that have been unsuccessful. Sort of saying, hey, aren't these the first two casualties in the history of the separate Air Force?
Yeah.
And it really hasn't gained any traction, which is too bad because
is
they really
too
did
bad.
die
That
in the
is
line
too
of
bad.
duty.
Yeah. And whether or not this story is true UFO phenomena and related or not, it's still, their lives were still lost, and that's still tragic.
They were on
had
a mission.
families. Yeah. They were doing their job. And interesting. Well, I'm going to take a moment here to break. I think because this kind of tells the happenings mostly, right? Up to this point.
Yeah, we're gonna, after the break, we get to talk about our Agent Mulder and the history's first X-File.
Yes, absolutely. So, in fact, this is where we're going to break for this episode, and we're going to come back next week with part 2 of our interview with filmmaker and Maury Island expert Steve Edmiston.
Fascinating man here.
We're going to delve more into the Men in Black, the government's involvement. Are the Men in Black real? Are they myth? Are they just conspiracy theory? And we're going to talk about Fred, because I think Fred needs to be talked about in relation to this story.
100%.
For sure. And we're also going to talk about the Men in Black Festival, which is coming up here shortly. And also, just to let you guys know, we are really excited because Steve is going to help us give away some tickets to the Men in Black Festival. So real quick, Steve, tell us what you are giving our listeners.
Well, we sell out the Men in Black Birthday Bash every year.
I'm going to break in here to tell our listeners, Shea and I went to 2 events last year, the film festival and dance, and then the event the next night. It was so much fun.
We had a blast.
We had a blast
so
on
happy.
both evenings. We danced and danced. I had a great time at the most. I mean, it's just full of people that are so fun, fascinating people too, from all different kinds of walks of life. It is a great time.
Yes,
so
you want to go to
You
this.
want to go.
So tell us what our listeners could enter to win.
Well, we definitely want to give away tickets to the Men in Black Birthday Bash. And that's sort of our core event that we're on our 4th year. That's the one you get to dress up. You get to wear black and white of any nature. Anything on the, I think they call it the, what is the I'm trying to come up with the word. It's the spectrum of no color.
Okay.
It's
Grayscale?
All grayscale, the grayscale, anywhere on the grayscale, from all white to all black, anything you pick. 60% of the people show up traditional. looking like the Blues
Fedora,
Brothers.
black suit.
Yeah, and then they got 30% who do something wild,
Aliens.
and then about 10% don't get the memo. They just like didn't know what was happening.
We'll tell you my story in the next
I have
episode.
photos. I got to show Steve.
So we want to give away some tickets to that, and then we have a bunch of other new events that we'd love to give some tickets away, and then hopefully we've got a lot of this year for I think the first time a lot of things that are free. And one of those is super exciting. It's one of the things we wanted to do forever is elevate Sparky's story.
I know.
And
I'm so excited.
And we're doing an event called Sparky's Revenge.
Yes.
Because,
Ooh, yes.
78 years ago, a flying disc got Sparky.
And he was just unceremoniously dumped overboard.
And so we feel that it's time for the dogs to bite back.
Yes.
And so we're having a flying disc dog tournament. That's a real thing. And
this is fantastic.
It's called Sparky's Revenge. And so all of our Sparkies are going to go out and compete to become the Sparky. And we're going to do it at the Des Moines Fieldhouse, and it's a legit competition that if you have ESPN 17, you can watch these flying disc dog tournaments. They're a riot.
So real dogs with
real dogs
they're
compete.
doing the disc, floppy discs.
The dog and the owner out there, and you get a minute to throw the disc, hopefully to the farthest area. The dog runs out, catches it, bring it back, and so you're trying to get points.
Oh.
So and they compete, and it's just wonderful to watch. They're having a blast. They're working, and then we were just like, you know what? Those dogs are biting those flying discs. That's just revenge.
I love
it.
Sparky's
this.
Revenge. It's that we're so excited about it.
So is this going to be a dog-friendly event then?
Not dog friendly to bring dogs.
Okay.
Because we have to be respectful for
the athletes.
They're really athletes. They
they are.
They show up. They either stay in a kennel or a car. One's brought out at a time. It's a really formal process so the dogs can do their thing.
Concentrate. Yes. Focus. Okay.
And
That sounds really exciting.
It's really fun. We're gonna have a lot of dog-related vendors and things that are gonna show up for that, and it's year one, so something will go wrong. It always does.
That's the fun
part.
It's gonna be fun exploring and learning as you go.
So we have great events, and we'd love to share all that stuff. And then we got great swag. If swag is good for listeners, we can figure out how to work that in. It's kind of what you guys want to do, but we like what you do and the way you do it with humor.
Well,
and that it's about history and mythology and this humor. And that's what we do. And so that's it's a good fit. So if we can help you, we would love to.
Well, we would love to help you as well, spreading awareness about the event. So, guys, we will have up on our website a link to join the contest to enter to win either tickets to one of the events or maybe some swag. Yeah.
Yep.
So Steve brought some great swag for us. We got some of the giant Stanley style tumblers with Men in Black swag. Maybe that'd be a great gift people would love. So if you are local, this is going to be for locals only. Locals only. You can enter to win tickets to the Men in Black Festival or some great Men in Black birthday bash swag. So just go to our website, rainydayrabbitholes.com. There will be a big button right there when you land on the page to enter to win. Now, part of that is you are signing up to join our mailing list for our newsletter, but I promise you it's not spammy. I only remember to do it every 3 months. So, and give us those dates again around approximately.
The festival is running, our opening event is June 13th. It's a Friday night. That's the Colleen Rafferty, Kate McKinnon lookalike contest. The alien abductee from SNL. I was
wondering how you felt about that episode or those skits because they
slay me.
They're amazing.
And so we are actually doing an event at a great bar called Marina Mercantile, and everyone's going to be looking like Colleen Rafferty or Carl. We feel like a male should be able to do it.
Yeah.
And the competition is everybody draws a random line from those plays.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we'll film it. It's going to be super fun. It's free. So it's going to sell out fast because we only got 44 seats to go.
These fun ideas, are they yours?
We have a good team. Okay. I do a lot of it, but that's our jam. Our jam is like, I can't stand going to I don't say I can't stand. If I go to something and it's a party and I don't know anybody and the DJ's playing and everything, it's good. It's fun.
Sure.
But I want it like I want to be immersed in the thing.
Yes.
Yes.
And immediately feel vested in the quirky nature of it. Like it's my thing. And that's different, so we want people to come to these events and just be part of it.
Well, you are successful then, because that is exactly what happened to me last year.
Absolutely.
I mean, we were just freshly introduced to the Maury Island Incident, the whole story when we came to your event, and I was part of the group about 10 minutes in.
It was fantastic. All right, guys. So, go to our website. Also, Steve has a website for the event, and that is?
It is www.mib622, the date. So mib622.com.
All right. And you can go there to sign up for the event. And then if you want to enter to win some of our great prizes for the event, go ahead and go to rainydayrabbitholes.com. I will also put links on social media. And please follow all of the great Men in Black Birthday Bash social media sites. Steve, can you share some of those with us?
Oh, I don't have them memorized, but we got Facebook and Instagram.
Yep, you can
and
just look up Men in Black.
If you go to the website that I gave you,
yes.
You can go to all that stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And definitely go, even if you don't win tickets, definitely go. It is a blast. It is a bash. So, well, thank you, Steve. We will see you next week. And see you down the rabbit hole.